order. It's already 12:03. We want to get out of here by 1 if possible. So roll call, Mr. Garcia.
Okay. Or what, Arnold? Why don't you go with the roll call if you're on and you're hosting the call?
Yes, sir. I will. Cesar Garay.
Present.
Julian Radnowski.
Here.
Alma Acevedo.
Present.
Fred Dickey. Fred Dickey.
Space right now.
Mayra Hernandez. Mayra Hernandez. Arturo Dominguez.
Here.
Rafael Dueñas. Rafael Dueñas.
Going once.
Joe Maldonado.
Wait.
Yeah, go ahead, Alma. You were going to say something about Rafa?
No, sorry, I did put in the chat that he had said he was having difficulties, so I just want to.
Chairman, you do have a quorum.
Very good.
And I'm here.
Excellent. Next item on the agenda is the minutes. Y'all got a copy of the minutes. I'll give you all a chance to review them. If y'all
Arnold, I think a couple other folks have gotten on.
Yeah, I see Mayra Hernandez. Big smile there, Mayra. There you go. There you go. There you go. Great. Thank you. And I think we still need Mr. Fred is having difficulty.
I'm here by phone. I'm having difficulties getting on this damn thing on my computer. I'm sorry about the French, but it pisses me off. But I've got my phone here.
Okay. Well, welcome, Fred.
Hey, thanks. Tanto pedo pa cagar. Wow, I'm sorry.
This is the PG-13 meeting, apparently.
Okay.
And I see Rafael also with a big smile. There you go, in that beard. There you go.
Hey,
Rafael.
let us pray.
So I guess we're all here. If y'all got a copy of the minutes, give y'all a chance to review. And do I give y'all a chance to review? Julian, a second by Arturo. Any discussion on the minutes? So all those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is a presentation by TAMIU Texas Center for Border Economic Enterprise Development. Federico Schaffler, Director for the TAMIU Texas Center for Border Economic Enterprise Development. I did all that in one sentence, The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I think I'm going to be sharing members of this committee, and we're going to try and share a little bit of what we are doing for all the region. So let me just start sharing the screen. Just a second.
Dr. Schaffler, while you're doing that, let me ask everyone to put yourselves on mute, please.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry about that. First of all, here is I don't know, probably all of you have visited our our website of the Texas Center. I just want to go through very quick. There's Alma interviewing me a long time ago. So at the Texas Center, we have a lot of information that is very useful for our business community, for the region. And basically what I think might be of more interest for all of you is that here you have the ability to compare information in the case of the South Texas cities: population, housing, education, health, economy, international bridges, bridge crossings, but for all border cities: Brownsville, Harlingen, Progreso, all the way to El Paso. This is one of the sources of information that has more hits by people from everywhere that wants to know information about our border, U.S.-Mexico border. There is another source of, excuse me. Okay, there is another source of information that is also very useful. It's on U.S.-Mexico trade through South Inland ports. And we have here Texas with all of its ports of entry, New Mexico with its border ports of entry, Arizona, all of its border ports of entry, and California. And we also have a monthly trade report. So as an example, if someone wants to see what is crossing, let's say, through Nogales, Arizona to Nogales, Sonora, we have the information here, the commodities and everything. Want to see what's crossing through San Diego? Everything's here. So this is also very useful. In the case of Texas, we have, in each case, we have the state as a whole, and then the ports of entry. So here in Laredo, this is the trend of exports and imports. So this is very important also for data. We also have information on energy, Eagle Ford Shale, production, rig counts, all of this. This is important. This is, and also for our larger region, we have information on 47 counties of South Texas, sorry, excuse me, that are part of the Future of the Region of South Texas Coalition. So we have these by Council of Governments. We have the statistics for all of these 47 counties broken down by each one of them. Population, poverty, education, health. It takes too long to see it. But we can also go by each one of them by itself. Golden Crescent counties, and here they are. Goliad, Jackson, Lavaca. So this is another source of information. Over in publications, there's some of the multiple presentations that I have been giving in the last few years regarding our region and other issues. So, okay, that's just a quick overview of what the Texas Center does for our community. And I think, okay, I need to stop sharing that because now I'm going to share my presentation. And okay, can you see this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
So this is basically this is my presentation. At the Texas Center, what we do is we gather data and then we work on it to provide guidelines or information that is useful for decision makers, for decision takers. So when an issue just like this about the clusters, when we were asked about it, we are not currently working on a specific project on cluster analysis. We have some information. We will probably work on it. It all depends on what comes along. But basically, what I would like to start is a quick definition, Professor here. What are clusters? You all probably already know what it is, but anyway, I'm going to share this presentation with you, I think via the chat, or I'll send it to Arnold or Tekla, and they can send it to all of you. It's a geographic concentration of related companies, organizations, and institutions in a particular field that can be present in a region, state, or nation. They arise because they raise a company's productivity, which is influenced by local assets and the presence of like firms, institutions, and infrastructure that surround it. That is just the main definition, the one that's considered like the top. And the U.S. cluster mapping project from EDA with the Harvard Business School is the one that is guiding all of this information. I'm going to share also where it is and how you can see it. And the main theoretical guru of this is Michael Porter, who you all probably already know. This is the model that Michael Porter created around 1990, where he first suggested this vision of clusters and how each one of them is interrelated with the other. There are two types of clusters: local clusters that consist of groups of industries that primarily serve the local market, and traded clusters that provide products and services for cross-regional markets, and they bring in dollars from outside. Local clusters are the ones that generate more jobs and job growth. They are more intertwined with the rest of the businesses in the community. They are not so much exposed to outside competition because of once again, the geographic location. And they are very important for the economic health and vitality of a region. This is how they are interrelated according to the U.S. cluster mapping: transportation, biopharma, marketing, metalworking, all of these. The colors, I'm going to show you later on something about our region. There are 51 traded clusters considered and 16 local clusters: commercial services, community organizations, education, entertainment, financial services, food and beverage, health, hospitality, household goods, industrial products, logistics, which is our strength, motor vehicles, personal services, real estate, retail, and utilities. Once again, you're going to have this. And now we're going to go into what is a comparison of the growth of these clusters in the two periods, 2000 to 2009 and 2010 with 2019. The next slides, we're going to see which one of these, each of these spheres, what they represent. But right now, I would just call your attention to see that you have two types of blue, a stronger and a more light color of blue, and orange. Orange is last decade, the 2000-2009, and the blue is our current. So when we are above 1, we are above the national average. So in these cases, and now we can see which one are they. In 2009, as an example, transportation and warehousing had 11,000 jobs for the Laredo area. An LQ of 1, here it is, indicates that the industry has the same share of its area employment as the nation. So below 1, we are under the national average of employment in that sector. Above 1, we are above the national average. So here, basically, transportation and warehousing from 2009 to 2019 grew 4,000, almost 5,000 jobs. And we already know it, it's the most important source of employment or of the competitive advantage of Laredo. The second most important in our case is resource extraction, that grew from 1,400 jobs to 2,000 jobs from 2009 to 2019. Down here, healthcare, 2009, 12,600. Healthcare 2019, 16,500. Accommodation and food, 2009, 7,500. 2019, 10,600. Retail, it grew, not so much, 400 jobs. So it just decreased a little bit, but we are still above the national average. Utilities, education, construction, all of those, we are below. And agriculture, we're negative. This is another comparison of other services. Over here, we basically go with the big ones: transportation, health, education, retail. Over here, we can see the other sectors, the other clusterization of sectors. Business services, the purple one, from 3,500 jobs in 2009 to 7,300. So it doubled business services. Finance and insurance, it lost jobs. Professional services gained jobs, but remains more or less at the same part. But all of these, remember, are below the national average. All of these. Wholesale trade, real estate, entertainment, information, manufacturing is down here. Manufacturing in 2019, 750 jobs. In 2009, we had 1,100. So this is one of the areas that decreased in the number of jobs. But we are very close to the national average. This is like a projected jobs that will be created from 2019 to 2029 from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. In our case, and these computer and mathematical occupations, community and social service occupations, healthcare practitioners and technical occupations and support occupations, sales and related occupations, office and administrative support occupations, farming, fishing, and forestry occupations, production occupations. So green ones, we're growing. They are expected to grow. Management occupations have the highest medium annual wage. Computers. So this shows us what is going to grow. Healthcare is going to grow here, and where we are going to lose, supposedly, according to this projection, jobs.
Dr. Schaffler, this is Teclo.
Yes, Teclo?
Yes, just to let you know, you've got about like 8-9 minutes
Okay.
on your
I'll just put the piso al acelerador. Okay, so you're going to have this. This is also the same, the employment clusters, but from 2000 to 2009. This is just like a larger projection of what I already showed you, comparison. So they're going to have it, so you want to see it. This is interesting and important, and I don't know if I can. You're just seeing the presentation, right? Not my web browser.
Just the presentation.
Okay, I'll show you where I got this before I finish. This is from the U.S. Cluster Mapping Project, and it shows us employment in Webb County in 2017, private non-agricultural employment, transportation and logistics. Once again, we know it's the highest, but we're number 27th ranked in the United States. This is traded clusters. Remember, it's the one that's from outside. Local clusters, it's local hospitality establishments is number one. And over here is local logistical services. It's number 177 in the US. So our leading source of competitiveness, that is logistics, is in traded, number 27, and that means out of Laredo, number 27 in the country, and local, it's 177. So this is good for us. It just shows what we already have. Okay, over here. These are the average wages. This dotted gold line is the U.S. average traded cluster wage. And if we go down to see oil and gas production and transportation, that is our second highest. We are very, very below what is the U.S. average wage for this cluster over here. And if we go still down, transportation and logistics, this is the U.S. average wage, and we are below, very, very below it. So that is something that we have to work on. These are wages by local cluster. Once again, logistical services, we are at a par with the U.S. average, but we're still below for the cluster. Two different things. And just to go back to something that I've been thinking about is there are already documentation and guidelines that have information for this specific issue that you want to work on. Actually, it is there, and you probably came out from that. Some of you were part of the Laredo Economic Recovery Task Force that we were invited around when the pandemic started. Teclo, Alma, I remember, I can't remember anyone else. I can't see you, I just see 4 little screens. But anyway, there I mentioned that we have to use these documents that are so important. We have to look forward. We cannot just expect to like a fireman, apagar fuegos. We have to look forward, and that is why strategic planning documents like the comprehensive plan, the economic development strategy, and the Región Laredo long-term vision plan for Nuevo Laredo are very important to consider. In the economic development strategy, it is already here. We can already see here transportation services, general warehousing. That is our leading source, and where we could diversify and what new areas we could attend. So these are the areas where maybe the city should consider working on something. So now I'm gonna just quickly stop sharing this and show you something else. And for those of you who want, where am I? Share. For those of you who would might want to get more information on this, the U.S. Economic Development Administration has the cluster mapping project. And here is the site with Harvard Business School with all the information there is. And what is very, very interesting is that they have some tools that provide us with a lot of information already on our region. Over here it's Webb County. Performance, drivers, prosperity and employment, annual wages, employment, again, cluster portfolio, transportation and logistics, business services, distribution of electronic commerce. And then we go into performance of other more, labor mobilization, unemployment, poverty rate, labor force productivity, innovation, establishments, exports, R&D, federal funding, venture capital. There is a vast amount of information here that you should be using in what you're doing. Demographics and geography. So this is what I wanted to show you. And I think if it's okay, we can go over to the part of
Yeah, well, let's keep in mind, EDA committee, that we've got 2 really big other issues to deal with. So, Dr. Schaffler, if email in the chat, so people can email you questions. I think that would be maybe the best thing, Mr. Chairman. I'm just trying to make sure that we have ample time to discuss the other 2 items on the agenda.
I already sent you my wfchaffler@tamiu.edu. And let me see if I can share you the.
Everyone, so you have it. There's some fascinating information on there, especially at the end that you showed us. And I wish we had even more time to discuss it.
Okay. Okay. Well, you have my email. Anything that might be able to assist or provide some data or any. And we have to look forward. And I congratulate you on working together, and so you can provide the city council with a different vision and maybe some recommendations of how what is recommended there can be implemented for the improvement of our economy. So
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you all.
Thanks for taking time out.
Don't mention it. Thank you.
We look forward to that email. Hopefully, maybe we can all be on the, I guess on the answers, all the committee members, so we can all sort of get involved in that. Very good. We'll go on to our second item on the agenda, which is discussion and possible action regarding Chapter 380 Subcommittee. So I'll have our committee member, Julian Rochnowski, present.
Okay, let me see. Share. Oh man, this is not easy. Okay. 1 second. Are you guys able to see it?
Yes.
So I'm not going to read this whole thing to you guys. I'm just going to skim over it. Did everyone, well, let me know if you didn't receive it through email, but my recommendation is after the meeting when you have some time to go over it. The subcommittee would love to have some notes from all of you on what your thoughts are thus far on the whole Chapter 380. So to just kind of dive into it, the framework of how this was developed was by using San Antonio's, El Paso, and Austin. Austin had an amazing one, and what it did really well is it kind of had this introductory to this document, which I understand when we think of Chapter 380 guidelines, it seems like something that should be really dry, but I think it's really important that we start off with some background, and that's what you're seeing right now. We talk about why economic development matters to Laredo. There's a whole discussion on that refers to the Viva Laredo economic development strategy. The second paragraph is regarding the City of Laredo public-private partnerships in Chapter 380. I think it's really important to start mentioning this language of public-private partnerships. I know there's been questions and people are trying to understand how those can actually be done. It's something that goes very well with Chapter 380. So I do have a section in here that refers to how they can intermingle. The next section is referring to the economic development guideline goals, and it's really kind of just bundling it all together from the Viva Laredo economic development strategy. It's funny how the previous presentation had this. That's why it's included in here also, because the idea, especially in this first section of this Chapter 380 guidelines, is we want the individuals that apprehend this packet to understand what the City of Laredo is really looking to try to bring. So it mentions all these, the core targets, the diversification targets, the emerging targets. That's why this little chart's included in here. So the key performance metrics, there's an entire page located within the guidelines. There's a lot of them that we're showing here, and the reason behind it is we believe there's a lot of ways you can measure economic development. You know, it can be as simple as, you know, tax revenue generated over time, or as complex as high school graduation rates. You know, if companies can prove that a service that they do actually assists with, let's say, high school education. This whole kind of section doesn't necessarily mean that they have to touch on all these. This just kind of almost provides a menu to any company or business that's coming to Laredo, and showing them what they can kind of come to us with and say, you know what, we think we can meet these metrics, and let us show you how. And these guidelines are very important for the city to understand, you know, we're open to receiving these type of metrics as the guideline if a project is worth developing a Chapter 384 or not. So there's all these little sections here. We've already gotten some feedback on this, where I think a way of making this a little more clear for, let's say, businesses that may not be able to provide the data to prove some of these points, maybe have some points that are highlighted that, let's say, the city has already collected data from. Let's say, you know, what is a livable wage? We would be able to provide that information already in these key performance metrics. So the next section goes into purpose of the 380. It kind of goes back into what our goal is. That's 2.0, 2.1 jumps into the eligibility of the program for the projects. It's now what we're really diving into is, are they qualifying projects? Do they meet all these criteria that we'd like to set, or do they meet a criteria that we'd like to set? So on 2.2, each program will be created in consideration of this framework and supporting key priorities determined by the overlap between. So what this is really kind of referring to is, so we will need to develop, or when I say we, that being the subcommittee or the actual city, develop this framework for these priorities and determine what they really want to go for. Things that are not kind of currently mentioned in Chapter 380's examples that I've seen that happened in Laredo is the trade and advanced logistics. There's no provision or mention of federal trade zone abatements. I am not an expert in these, but I'm sure some of you that are in trade understand these. I don't know how to insert the language myself, to be honest, but I do think we need to mention the fact that Laredo actually has these abatements for trade and advanced logistics. And I think it should be mentioned in here, because the way we should look at this document is, once these businesses or companies look at this document, they should be able to already understand, hey, without even this Chapter 380, there are bonus things that we can already ascertain. And if we're really going to be going after trade and logistics, well, we should mention the federal trade zones. So tourism and retail, there's no provision in the document for sales tax abatement. I know we've done Chapter 380s with sales tax abatements, Beclo, so I think we should actually mention what that number would most likely look like as an opportunity towards businesses, if that's another thing they'd like to go for in those Chapter 380s. So security and technology, as it pertains to border and logistics, I actually had a discussion with Viviana Frank regarding this. And I know Beclo wants to go after these logistics. I just think I'm not sure if it should be mentioned. This is one of these things that I really want feedback from everyone on this committee. The logic behind the uncertainty on putting an incentive out there for federal agencies is federal agencies go where they need to go. It's almost kind of like we're tossing money towards someone that if they need to be in Laredo, they're going to be in Laredo. And if I can tell you, as a commercial broker, I can see major issues arising in the fact that usually these are private entities that go after these contracts. I'm not sure if in these Chapter 380s, the city can start competing for these contracts, for federal agencies and trying to get them and give them abatements. I can just really see that not really being taken well by the business sector out there. So on the continuation, like I said, I don't want to just dive into everything. I just want to highlight certain things. The revitalization of key employment node or specifically designated areas in the city. This is mentioned because it provides the opportunity for certain sectors. We can actually designate certain areas and designate them as trades, trade logistics, designate areas as retail. So in other words, if you're a retailer and you're coming after these incentives, we would most likely want you to be in these specific zones. So this kind of feedback that I would like is, do we actually believe that we should develop a map, or should we leave it as broadly as possible? Something just happened. One second. So, and another thing to mention on the map, just because they're not in the map, it's always up to council to be able to decide if they still want to approve something or not. So I wouldn't consider that a limitation. If anything, I just think it provides more information for these businesses to understand where we really kind of want these businesses and companies to go if we were to give them these incentives. So the amount of the incentive per project, this is the grant side of the whole thing. And I know this grant language can sometimes be confusing, but essentially what it is it's a tax reimbursement. These are the example amounts that are in here right now. This is another section I'd really like to get some feedback on. Basically, the way it works, there's two ways. We can either give tax abatements based off investment, or we can give tax abatements based off of job creation. And those can both intermingle simultaneously also. I think what's very, very important is that we have language that refers to a living wage with standard benefits. In the presentation that you just heard, Laredo's biggest issue right now is that we're a major wage gap compared to other cities. So I know a lot of the complaints, at least what you typically read and see among citizens, is that the jobs just don't pay well enough here. And because of that, we have brain drain. On top of that, we have poverty. So I think it's really important to understand, if we're going to be giving these incentives out there, that they benefit the citizens when these jobs are created. Before COVID, we had really low minimum wage. We didn't need there was plenty of jobs out there that paid minimum wage in Laredo and up to $12, $14, but there wasn't really anything above that. So I think we need to take that into consideration. So on loan funding, so this section is something the city, I'm not sure if they've done it before. I do know Chapter 380s can allow you to do loans. Right now, from my understanding, in my conversations with Declo, there is $0 that can be allocated to this. But I do believe that it's in our best interest to make sure that we put all the tools in the toolbox. And we can always include language that states, based on funding from City Council, this program may or may not be available for the loan funding section. So I really do believe that we need to make sure this language is in here. I know we can always pass it later, but this idea of passing it later when we can do it now, I do believe that we should just get it through now, and then if we can fund it later, that's better. So you can dive in and go through how that can possibly look. So the application, wage and benefit requirements, this kind of dives into how the application for each project should look. It includes a but-for statement, which is broken down a little further down into this. So you can read through that. But we do need to develop with the city a matrix scorecard or a tool so we can evaluate all these projects and be able to compare projects, because we may end up with situations where we have multiple requests for these Chapter 380s, and we need to easily be able to compare all the possible projects that are coming to Laredo, because we will, in essence, depending on which, that being a grant, a loan, or an abatement, there's only going to be a limited amount of funds, and we should go after the projects that check the most amount of boxes. So then we go into the approval process. This needs to be developed also. I'm not sure what the city wants that to look like, so I didn't assume anything there. The compliance, the same thing. Program grant types, this kind of is the definition. Revenue positive grants, meaning it's bringing more than going out. Revenue neutral grants, where it means the company or business that's coming in is generating pretty much the same type of revenue that was given through the grant. And there's other operational support grants where there's other ways to measure those. So grant program evaluation tools, here's the but-for statement that I was mentioning earlier, which is really important. Cost benefit tool, return on investment. These are all different ways of kind of measuring everything out. Exceptions and waivers. And then the process. We need to figure out what the process for applying for one of these grants. I think anyone that's looking to make, $100,000 investment or a $500,000 investment should be able to go through the same exact process as someone that's going for a $10 million investment. So we do need to establish a way of being able to apply for these. And that's kind of like the breakdown that I have here, for example. That's essentially it. There's a stewardship, which is, I advise you all to read. I think it's really important in there. It refers to transparency and the fact that all of this should be in an open portal. And every time they're approved or not approved, this should all be open information. But that's essentially pretty much most of this. Annual update and reporting, we need to, once these go out, that same kind of open access that we should provide, all that data out there, we should also provide the updated data to show how these, so the public can see, okay, this company that got this Chapter 380, we put this much money out, and in order to get that, but at this point where we're at now, this is how much it's generated. So the public can see the type of impacts these are having.
Julian.
So that concludes everything.
Julian,
Yeah.
I know before we had like a minimum of a $7 million investment. Is that correct?
I don't think we ever had an official. Are you talking about the city of Laredo or?
Yeah, for the Chapter 380, they're going to apply. That the concern I have, if there's a lot of small, we want to help the small ones, but we don't want to get inundated with just a ton of them, right? So I don't know what your thoughts are, Teclo, what your thoughts are on that.
If I can just respond to that. Oh.
No, go ahead, Julian.
Okay, yeah, I'll be brief and then I'll let Teclo. So for example, this mention of, let me skim up, revenue positive grants. So I struggle with saying that is a bad thing, especially, for example, we have, 20 companies creating, smaller jobs, less investments, but are very revenue positive, where the grants that we're putting out there for them is creating so much more. So I think there can be a number that's put out there. don't think it's, anything above, 7 million. That just seems exorbitantly high. And
Yeah,
that
John,
goes-
thank you very much. Appreciate it, Julian. So on that particular question, you have to decide what that number is. And the 380 program isn't for small businesses and for loans and grants of 100 grand or 50 grand. Mr. Chairman, I think you're correct. We'd be inundated with that. And there's separate programs for that kind of thing. In addition to that, that goes into the private sector, and what private sector businesses do, like IBC Bank or Lift Fund, they lend money out at those amounts. And we don't want to get into that business. There has to be a good return on the investment, and there has to be job creation here. And that's what this city, nor Fort Worth or El Paso or San Antonio, can't get involved in doing 100 or 30 380s a year. That would bog down the entire process and inundate our staff having to evaluate in a similar way. So that's why I don't think that's lending money in small amounts or granting money in small amounts is good for a 380 program. And they're wrong for 380s is like $30 million. So having something at $7 million for I sent everyone on the committee a version of the 380 agreement that I drafted. But because she really worked on this quite a bit. The target industry, some of the wording in there. There's things as well as the amounts for the grants. So I moved those up to like 80% and things like that. So I've made some really positive changes. Really good document to move forward, Mr. Chairman. I think Mr. Dominguez had his hands up.
I tell you, it's a little bit different than what Julian was showing. The only thing that I saw, and when it came to the compliance, the annual review, what happens if they don't comply? What's the remedies?
Okay, so each individual, when we get to with company XYZ, their incentive agreement, we will include their notification and all those things that you would see. In this case, the whole kitchen sink into these guidelines. These are for people to look at, to guide their way into this process. When we get into negotiation,
And it's the best document I've seen from the city. Yeah?
pardon me?
That's the best document I've ever seen from the city.
Sat down with El Paso. I've spoken to other folks. Certainly, very much. Appreciate it.
Kudos for the committee.
Yeah. So I don't know, Teclo, if they first pay the tax, then if they're not in compliance, well, they're not going to get requirements.
That's John. That's a great point. That's written into the text. The business is generally particular agreement, right? So we come to that agreement. just sales tax only. That's what the 312 is. But on the 380, it's a rebate, and what Julian referred to considered the grant. But the
Everyone, I mean, especially Julian, he put a lot of effort into this. One of the best documents, you know, of course, now it's execution and it's
let me, Mr. Chairman, let me also mention that on folks, like I mentioned, I sat down with Miss Vivian. Has helped me as well. So there's been a lot of feedback. Let me for review. It has to go to our city management for review. It would get to that point, but right now it still has some more review to go.
Is anybody planning on bringing action now that Julian's presented?
it's a present. We always put possible action in case there something needs to be done. I think it's
It in front of you all. So, and
Yes.
then get you a copy. But
of course, then we got the and again, we also want it to be right, doctor, where it just doesn't sit there, where we're constantly trying to
Question here, the committee. Let me just. On this particular document, he and but I'll say that that I would like to work with. I've never shut myself off to that, but I'd like to start working on it. 95% finished in terms of reviews.
day, and I guess your document, how do they differ? Or are they?
they differ, especially in the introduction where it has the complete breakdown, and it differs with the actual loan language in there.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess. So I don't know.
We could review both documents and see what, if there's certain sections they really like in either of them, and then we can combine them.
That's why I sat down with you and Viviana for 3 meetings, and I don't think that a 380 agreement, and it's not common. I just don't think they're necessary, in my opinion. I'm not saying they wasn't good work. That is. It's going to have to work with, and I get approached by these. Arnold knows. The document I submitted is what we needed to go forward, and also just keep in mind, and the document I submitted with input from others. Who comes in here with a but definitely cannot be these small loan programs.
The compliance for them.
It'll be like 380.1, 0.2, 3, and I can't remember the number right now, but it should be like 3.
Would there be a recommendation for us to make a motion for you to move forward and present this to?
That's what I would prefer, but that would be between you and the chairman of the committee.
Yeah, so right, so I don't know if,
My understanding is that it's 95% because it hasn't gone to executive management or.
I think that by the amount of input that I've gotten from the different parties, I think that document has.
I guess like yours, I guess we have, I don't know, the one that you worked on yesterday, do you have that? Or have we seen that one?
Yes, that's what I sent out to everyone. There are some typos in there, I'll admit, and I can share that with y'all if you want on my share screen here.
Nicola, may I ask why we're shying away from the loans? I understand the city is not the business or corporation. Why are we going to remove things?
Lending out to people, and for what reason? Are they going to meet our minimal demands of those loans? And who's going to supervise those loans and make sure they're paid back in a timely manner and
actually be forgiven depending on the project? Like, for example, San Antonio uses them for housing.
Can I?
They don't use them under the I'm not opposed to loans. I just don't think that they fit under the 380 program.
The way Cyclo provided is, well, not understanding, it's obvious that's about half the length of what Julian's provided. And that the way I'm understanding is that you don't want to put too much detail into the 380 because projects presented and the back and forth between the city and whatever this private sector investor. So I'm okay with the document Declo presented, but I haven't looked at Julian's. It didn't come with enough time for me to review. So I'm also okay with reviewing more of Julian's. And on the loan, this reminds me for second story buildings in downtown and things like that. And I think that that's just a separate thing. And at the time, money as a city to put forth that type of things, and it sounds like kind of like we're circling back to that.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I'm understanding.
Housing is not, hold on, let me be very clear. That is an example I'm giving of what they do.
Another good point you bring up, Julian, is that, you know, maybe right now the city doesn't have money, but at one point they will. Is separate from a 380 agreement, and the chapter 380 doesn't really speak to it all that. Arnold and I, but mainly Arnold, worked together a presentation for this committee for small businesses. We just, because this was on here, we pushed it back a month, but I think that's what we're looking for. adapted for that kind of use that Julian's talking about. So anyway, I think it's to answer your input and review. I think the document is ready to go forward.
Yeah, the only thing is that we put a lot of effort into this, Teclo, and so it's also got to be. I think it's fair to the committee members that we. This is a document that I want, and basically, I mean, so why even do we even go through this process?
No, John. I mean, I think that's a little bit off base because. Especially Viviana. I think I spent several hours with Viviana. This document.
Yeah.
Aside from Julian. So.
Yeah.
I'm pretty proud of it, and I don't think it is an exclusive document. It's not what I want. Which is El Paso and San Antonio and Fort Worth. I'll leave it up to the committee.
My only recommendation is that it's up to the committee on what they'd like to do. Perceive them, and if they think they're advantageous, and right now, that's the process. My whole recommendation is that they are able to review both.
This, and I'm reviewing what Julian has. Is to legal and administration.
Latest one from Tecla.
But it can always be revised, no? It's not written in stone either. I
No.
mean, take action.
It's going to be revised by legal or whomever.
To add or remove, but it's a start. I mean, I think it's a good document. It's the best document I've ever seen. I motion to approve this document.
I second.
I second. Oh, okay.
Okay. Any
Let's hear the discussion.
Arturo's never seen one of my documents. I'm really offended by that. This is the best document he's ever seen.
I know, that's high praise, man.
Ms. Acevedo?
Yes, when we say this document, are we referring to Tecla's amended draft, or are we referring?
City of Laredo Economic Development Program Guidelines authorized by the Chapter 380 South Texas Local Government Code effective July 2021.
So that's the one that was Tecla. That one was which one? The one that was
That is Tecla's 6-page document.
but that was given to us when? I'm sorry.
That was sent to you yesterday.
Okay, but that. Everybody. Okay.
Correct.
I'm sorry. I didn't look at it. So, okay. So with that, I guess there was Arturo or by Fred, by Arturo. Okay. Well, there was discussion. All those in favor, raise your hand or say. Okay. So motion passes.
And me.
And Joey, there you go. So motion.
Or the city management asks for something else, I'll be obliged to come back.
Okay, good. Excellent. We'll go on to the next item, which is, this is for discussion only for serve you all for a number of years, but I think it's time now that we get other people to be the EDAC chairman, and also we're going to be electing a anybody that wants to either run as an EDAC chairman or run as a EDAC vice chairman or both. From there, I guess next meeting we can have the list of committee members that want to. And then we can vote, I guess, during the meeting. Any discussion? Y'all, what do y'all think about that?
Hey, why are you doing this? Is this because of age, John?
Probably because of little age and yeah. Retirement. No. Go ahead, Joe.
Should we wait until all the may not be here?
The move that the chairman made is not for you to decide now, is for you to start considering. But you bring up a good point, Joey, and maybe you take. I'm going to be done until December 5th or 7th, and they're not going to name people like that. So that's a good point.
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay. So we will do that. We will go until to January. Seconded by Joey. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
I think Julian has something.
Just raise my hand, Fry.
There you go. Okay. Thank you all.
See you tomorrow. See.
Wait, Rafa has something as well.
Just before we since this was only for discussion, is this motion for January off the chart of the
Elections in January instead, but those that are interested, I guess they can start. The just through email or text to Teclo.
To talk about the rules and how we can get this together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Put those motions as discussion and possible action in case we're ready to take action in December.
We've already.
Fred.
Very good.
Y'all be good. I'm rowdy. I'm getting
Happy
old.
Thanksgiving. Yeah.